Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. So you know how players are so much more geared towards min-maxing and preparing for content these days, much more so than was ever the case in vanilla, especially when you consider we have all of the knowledge we could ever want as for what we will need in each phase, as well as what would be a good idea to think about for the Burning Crusade. What do you reckon is going to happen to the economy in the game a few weeks after Phase 6 has been out and guilds have had their first few runs through Naxxramas? Now, whilst I'm sure Nax will certainly be a step up from AQ40, at the same time I don't think it's going to have quite the legacy that was built up around it of only the elite 1%ers getting inside and managing to land a full clear. World buffs, consumables, bis lists, amongst many other things, will have a lot to answer for in this regard. Even now in AQ40, players have realised they can get away with using the basic nature protection potions over the greater ones. Good positioning can easily overcome any damage you take on fights like Cthulhu, and consumables which don't directly affect your DPS are more just there for the learning curve most of the time. The only boss that really taxes your wallet is Viscidus, where it's very good to have a range of poison dispelling effects on you. In Naxxramas we have two tax bosses, being Lotheb and Sapphiron. I guess we'll have to see how quickly they drop and if people can get away with half measures when it comes to consumables. But even beyond Naxxramas there is a real possibility, which you shouldn't really overlook, that Blizzard may limit exactly what we can take over to TBC. Now, I'll give you this, it's a very small chance this happens. I believe we're going to be progressing horizontally, straight on as it were, just like it was back in vanilla, which kind of makes this really hard to do without just force deleting stuff from your characters, and it just sounds too messy to try and organise. What happens to all of these items that bots are continually ploughing into Classic? The Righteous Orbs, Arcane Crystals, Black Lotus, all of the various classic materials, leather, stone and everything else. Is everything just going to totally tank in price as players go into full TBC prep mode after a few weeks of Naxxramas? Not quite, I don't think so. In fact, I think the demand for vanilla tier crafting materials is going to absolutely shoot up and skyrocket, not only during TBC but beforehand. And I imagine there isn't going to be all that many players hanging about in the old world. Then again, it could become the next big way to make gold. There are some notable items that will remain relevant as ever, or even gaining value moving into TBC. Should Drums of Battle go in unchanged, there will be a massive demand for leather from classic content, as players will want to level up to at least 350 leather working to make use of this item as one of the strongest raid consumables that there is in the Burning Crusade. Jewel crafters need various bars and stone to level up, and ore is needed to prospect for gems too. People are going to go through thousands and thousands of thorium ore on day one, I can guarantee it, so I wouldn't worry about gems being overly expensive for too long. A lot of players will roll away from engineering too, even though you do get some cool new stuff with it. A lot of new very good items come from professions in TBC. Blacksmithing makes the best weapons early on, as does tailoring for armor, and with later patches there are even further updates to items made through these professions to keep them relevant. Definitely don't underestimate how much demand there will be for classic items. All of those new Shaman and Paladins leveling up should hopefully be able to funnel a good amount of items onto the auction house, but well, I don't really see there being anywhere as near as much leveling going on back during vanilla once we have an actual TBC launch. Also, the TBC consumables are going to be off the charts expensive for a good while, I'm willing to bet. So you may think, well, I'll keep my classic consumables then, which is sort of the right idea. See, I'm expecting us to launch where consumable stacking has been heavily nerfed, as in now you can either have only one Guardian and Battle Elixir active. This was an across-the-board change made in 2.1, as players were stacking vanilla consumables on top of the TBC ones as well as world buffs, and well, things were getting quite a bit out of hand. The idea behind this is that you can only have one defensive elixir and one offensive one, so you may have Mongoose as Battle and Spirit of Zanza as Guardian. Flasks, however, still count for both, persist through death and last 2 hours. Also, there is now an alchemy lab in Shatref, so no more trips to Scholarmance or Blackwing Lair are needed. On top of this, the formulas for flasks become available from certain reputations as Exalted, because it may be kind of hard to farm the likes of UBRS for Titans for example in TBC. Classic tier flasks are actually not far behind the power level of the Burning Crusade ones. Well, at least for health, mana, and spell power. Melee don't get a flask in Classic for throughput, but they do in TBC though. It will be very expensive. I'd think about which one Battle and Garden Elixir combo you plan to go with early on. I'd definitely keep in mind Black Lotus will not crash just because there becomes a better option in TBC. In fact, they might actually go up in price. On top of this, I know the list just keeps getting longer, vanilla tier flasks have become much more affordable to make as the materials required are squished down hugely. So for example, Flask of Supreme Power is only 10 spell power behind the new alternatives made in TBC, as well as granting spell power for every spell type, and the crafting items go down from 30 Dreamfoil to 7 and 10 Mountain Silver Sage to 3. So basically, flasks are still really good in TBC. You do wonder with how much botting there is in Classic whether the demand is really going to fall off considerably between the two versions of the game, and that the supply might just skyrocket so much that pretty much everything would drop hugely in price. And no doubt there will be many players heavily investing into items that drop pre-TBC, as well as making their own decisions on what they think will rise. But then again, bag space is a finite resource, and a lot of items that are currently high in circulation just sort of become a bit useless. I reckon the downtime period between the announcement and the launch is going to be one of the best times to make gold, and probably one of the easiest at that. Well, unless you have people like me saying this and pointing it out though. Who knows though, I've been wrong in the past once or twice. Mind you, thinking about TBC and some of the big expenses there, Artisan flying is 5,000 gold, which doesn't really feel anywhere near the level of prestige that would have been associated with that achievement back in the day, and people would be in such a mad rush to get places like the Elemental Plateau to corner off the moat market early on. There may even be people flying by the end of day 1 after launch, if people can level fast enough of course. Druids can train flying at level 68 too, whilst everybody else has to level all of the way to 70, so I guess we'll see whether this has an impact or whether this very short-term advantage doesn't really end up weighing in too much. Still though, all of this is a while off. We don't have the confirmation for certain, but I'm sure it will be coming sooner rather than later, and I do enjoy speculating and trying to cash in where I can, where I see opportunities to do so. Do you have any thoughts on the Classic economy and how it will look after the first few weeks of Phase 6? How about in regards to preparation for the Burning Crusade, as I'm sure many of you are already underway doing that? Hit me up below. Thanks all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one very soon. If you like what you see, do give the video a like and subscribe, as there will be plenty more to come. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.